Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. This is going to be part 2 on this TT. What we're doing today is front pads and discs and front CV joint. Now, on the far side, which I'm only going to show you one side, we're doing it on both sides, but it looks like the caliper seized on the far side. It's very tight. And what I mean by that is if you look here, you can see how easy I can move this around to this side, and it's a hell of a lot harder to turn. So we might have a problem with this, and not only that, you're not going to be able to see it on camera, I don't think, but the inner CV boot is damaged on this side as well. So it's looking like we're going to have to replace maybe a caliper and a couple more bits that side. That's what it kind of looks like, but won't really know until we get into it. First thing I'm going to do is take off this. Now I've already hit this with a hammer like I've shown on a few other videos, so this comes out pretty easy. Next thing we want to do is take off the actual clip, the anti-rattle clip, so we can get that out of the way. And again, I might not pick this up, but there's a huge lip, and I mean it's as thick as that screwdriver. So there's a huge lip on these discs.
If you tripped over, you get compensation.
What?
If you tripped over, you get compensation.
Break your bloody leg, that's what you do. Right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to take the caliper off. It's normally easier to spin the wheel, but of course I haven't left the keys in because I never do, so the steering wheel's locked, but not to worry. I'm going to get a screwdriver in there and bend the piston back first.
It's a bigger lip than Big Jaggers. It's a bigger lip than Big Jagger.
Right, unfortunately that front disc is seized, the back disc has all the rubber's gone and it's all gone bad. I'll show you that too. Now hopefully the camera's picking this up. You can see what that is. It's someone's winded this back that didn't really know what they were doing, and the problem is the rubber is all now ripped, but now the piston has gone rusty inside, which has more or less made it seize, and that is just because someone wind it back and didn't know what they're doing or didn't look properly. So it's essential when you're doing something like this, just take your time. Even if it takes you an hour longer, it doesn't matter. Rather than causing yourself damage and causing yourself a small fortune, it's just easier to do it that way. Right, I was going to wedge a screwdriver in there like I normally do, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you kind of a different way with a G-clamp. It's the same thing really, it doesn't matter that much. What I'm going to do is just pull off these little clips, and then we can take off the carrier. I started to put the screwdriver in there, then I thought, no, I'll show you a different way. We need a 7mm Allen key. I happen to have one on a 3/8 drive ratchet. So the bottom one's done. Crack it. Now, this is what I've just taken off, and as you can see, all the crud and crap. So again, you want to clean this every single time too. This is what the caliper actually slides up and down on, and when it's not free, again, you can have the same problem. So you can put new pads and discs on and have essentially like a seized caliper. So always do these. I'm going to wire brush it and put grease on it. Again, same with that one too. Now, this should just come out now. It does. Where you can do it with a G-clamp, and what I always forget to say before you do this, you do need to take off your cap for your brake reservoir inside your engine. So as you can see, this will just now screw that back, and as I'm doing that, the piston's going back in. Now again, this should be nice and easy like it is now. If it's hard and you're struggling, the caliper is seized. So it should be nice and easy, and you know you haven't got a seized caliper. Now, that's all the way. And that's just another way of doing it. What I'm going to do is put a bungee cord on this and hook it onto the spring. It just keeps it out of my way, keeps from getting damaged, and it keeps pressure from holding on to the actual line itself. And now we can take off the pads. And as we can now see, hopefully the camera will pick that up, you can see the lip that's on these is huge. And again, well, you can just see how rusty the back of it is. The front of it, apart from the lip, it looks okay, but when you look at the back of it, you can just see how bad these were. They're just so but dangerous. And just while I remember, I'm just going to wire brush these inside here. It's important to do that. It's where the new pads are going to sit. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get out the drive shaft. A couple of ways of doing it. You can either disconnect the suspension or you can disconnect the wishbone. The problem is we have, I don't know if the camera's going to show this, there's already a problem with this wishbone. I don't know if the camera's going to get in there. You can see half the rubber is sticking out when it shouldn't be. So, yeah, we could have more problems as we're going along. But I'm going to disconnect the wishbone for this one. But first I need to get the CV joint out. Now, as these special sockets, so a 12-sided socket, but they're not a normal 12-sided socket, they're really heavy points, as you can see. Only these types of sockets will fit these types of bolts. This is a 30 mil, and a normal 30 mil socket 6-sided will not fit these, so you have to get the right one. Once you've got the right one, whip it off. Compressor to turn on to get the full power, but until then I'm going to take off the 3 bolts underneath here on the wishbone. 16 mil. Now that will release that, so wait for my compressor to turn on and build up, and then I'm going to take off this. That had been cross-threaded. We're changing it so it don't matter. There we go. Now, we're sorted. What I'm going to do is just disconnect the steering, the track rod end. 19 mil. Now just hitting the stub axle wasn't hitting the actual track rod end. Otherwise you won't be able to get the nut back on. Now, is this middle bit moving? That is now seized inside here, but we've got another trick for that. Now, these are great. Lidl's Finest. Or Audi, whichever one. Lovely! That saves a shitload of work for like 15 euros. Right, we can now see CV joints. On the far side, we're going to have to replace the whole drive shaft because the inner boot's gone and there's too much play. There's play in the CV joint and there's also play near the gearbox end. But on this side, we're just replacing the CV joint. Now, I've just changed the connection on the air chisel to a chisel. And we're just going to hopefully get these off fairly easy. And there's 2. You can cut them off, it doesn't really matter how you get them off, but they do need to come off. And when you get a new CV joint, we get a new rubber, so we're not worried about damaging the rubber. What we need to do now is take off the rubber, and the easiest way to do that is cut it. Find a kitchen knife, like a bread knife, is really good for these. It kind of saws through them. I'm just using a normal Stanley knife, kind of snap-on blade, but it's really the same thing, doesn't matter, as long as you get it off. It's just a messy job. And now that's off. And as the CV joint, you've kind of got 2 options. You've either got one with a little kind of circlip that's on the top. So let me show you on the new one. So you either kind of got one with a little circlip that's kind of on the top here, or you've got one with like a clip that's in the middle, or should I say at the end. and that's the one we've got, so we need to hammer this off. They can be quite hard to get off. Easy to put on, but kind of hard to get off. You need to keep it as straight as possible and try and hammer it. Now, that came off nice and easy because it's baggered. Normally they don't come off that easy, but as you can see, it's off, which is good. And here we have the little circlip. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. It's kind of embedded in the actual end of the shaft. And also on this we have a little plastic kind of spacer, so, and a washer, you can see that there. So we're going to replace them. Now the washer is slightly concave, so you need to remember that, and the concave goes towards the gearbox, so again you need to remember that. Now I've just looked in the bag, and unfortunately we don't have a new one of these little spring washers, or these little spring circlip things in there, but we do have a new washer, and as you can see, I don't know if the camera's going to show that, slightly concave, so we need to put that back. It's not really the end of the world. I would have preferred to change it, but it's not in the box, so there's nothing I can do about it. The only good thing is the one we have on is good. Now if the one we had on was damaged, we would be in trouble, but because it's good and it's still sticking out a little bit, I'm not actually worried about it, so it could be worse. What I need to do now is, actually, I need to take these back off, thinking about it, so I need to take them back off first. Give this all the grease off it. There's one thing you need to do, and again, I always forget, is to put the boot on first. And a bit of lube on the old shaft. Oh, behave, I know what you're thinking. This should slide on a lot, but I can't say anything now without it sounding bad. Lube on the shaft and slide on. Anyway, put my fingers in the rubber, lube up the shaft and slide it on. And there we go, it's on. Make sure you get the end out. Yep. I can't say anything. End out. God. Turn into an X-rated film. So, that's on first. That is important. Vitally important. Then we can put on our washer. The little spacer. Now all you'd need is a screwdriver just to pop that out and slit the new one on. It really is simple as that. What we need to do now is we need to get grease inside this CV joint. So all the grease we get, the best thing to do is if you can slide this down the hole first, like that, squeeze the grease out inside the hole as best you can, shove it out as you can. Now, best thing to do is put your finger in and push it inside as much as you can inside, and that will, once you keep pushing it inside, it will force the grease up through the side and onto the actual balls on itself. So we've got another tub of grease, another little packet of grease. We've got 2 packets. Again, squeeze it down in there and squeeze it all down. Same thing again, squeeze it down. Now, I'm not actually happy with that. There's not enough grease in. So I've got the molly grease, and as you can see, we can just, well, this one, normally you can just push it down and let the grease fill in, but we can't do it on this one. So I'm just going to grab the grease and keep putting it in until I start seeing grease come out where these little balls are. Then I know I've got enough. Now, and spread it in and around there, just like that. And once that starts working its way in, that's going to be plenty. Right, so clean as much grease off as you can. And again, what we need to do is get this straight. We need to line up the splines and then push it in. We might need to tap it with a hammer, but we might not. So line it up into the middle, kind of twist it around till you know when you've got the splines lined up. I'm just going to put the bolt on, put it in, and then a few light taps. There we go. Did not hit that hard, it's gone in. Now we need to get the boot completely around it so it's sealed, which again can be easier said than done. Now we're on. So we've got the boot in place, the grease is in. Lovely jubbly. Now that went on quite easy. Sometimes, believe me, they don't. Now we get these metal clips with the new CV joint, just like the ones we took off. So what we do is we need to get that on. Now we need to make sure that the rubber is in the right place. We also need to cut off, so I've just put it on, but we need to cut off this because it's too long, just that little bit there. Let's get some cutters and then just that's that done. Try this again. What you need to make sure is that the rubber is definitely on properly. And what I mean by that is there's a little slit in the CV joint where the rubber goes. And if you try and push this on and it's not there, the rubber can fall off, all the grease will come out and the CV joint will go in a matter of days. So before you tighten it down, you want to make sure that that rubber is in properly, which it definitely is. So what I need to do now is just line up them little slits with the holes on here. I've got a nifty little tool, and what it does is it crimps the two ends in and pushes them together, and that's what actually crimps it. You don't need this, you can use side cutters and stuff like that, but this is kind of the proper tool for it. So I'll put that on there and just crimp it together, press hard, and there we go. It's on, it's solid, sorted. You do the same with the inside, which normally this one is normally always the harder one to do. I just want to clean all the gunk off there first. Once you've actually crimped it together, little legs that stick out, you just want to hit them, just to bend them over, like a little locking tab almost. And that just bends them over, stops it from coming apart. And we do the same with the inner one. So once it's in, these little legs that stick up, just bend them down. So we need to put it up first to see how much we need to cut off. Again, I need to cut off the first little clips. It's too long. Yeah. They can be fiddly, these. Now, just need to crimp that together, and then you're done. Now, just bend down little tabs. Sorted. Now, it's one CV joint on. So that starts spinning around and working its way in. It'll be lovely. Now to get it back in. Sorted. Put the new nut on. Now this is a special lock nut. I don't know if the camera's going to show this, but the two ends are kind of been flattened. So the couple of the last 2 or 3 end threads have been flattened, which once it starts screwing onto it, it'll actually kind of bind almost, and that's why it won't come loose. So it's another form of a lock nut, just different ways of doing it. Turn it this way, and as you can see, I can't turn it past there now because it's hitting the flattened thread. Now it's a 30mm socket. As you can see, the old nut was a 30mm, but it was their funny socket. When I put a 30mm 6-sided on, as you can see, it won't even fit nowhere near it. Now I can give that a proper squeeze once I get all the brakes and stuff on, but that's kind of good enough for us at the minute. Now line up the ball joint now at the bottom. There we go. Mind your fingers. The 316mm bolt back. Now once you've done anything with your suspension, and I mean even just loosen something and tighten it back, you need to track it, and it's important. And on this car we have some camber adjustments on the actual ball joint itself with these 3 bolts. So you can line up the bolt holes with the marks that are on it, but like I said, you do need to get it tracked. It is so important. I can't stress how important it is for you to do that. Now I've tightened the 316mm bolts on the bottom. I've lined up the original holes, but like I said, I'm still going to be tracking it. I'm just going to put the track rod end on now. And you have to be very careful what I'm about to do. The air gun will hopefully quickly clamp this so it doesn't completely spin. If it spins, I'm going to have to put a gearbox stand to stop it from spinning. But hopefully the power of the air gun normally stops that. But I'm not going to fully tighten it with the air gun because the air gun will snap this. So, now, I was lucky, I got away with it. You don't always get away with that. Then I'm going to tighten it by hand, then you know exactly what you've got. Now, I now know that's okay, sorted. So, the next thing really is putting the brakes back on. So before I put the new disc on, I'm just gonna get lube all that up. Now, what you need to do before you put the disc on is just double check it with the old disc, make sure the circumference is right, the thickness is right, and all the holes line up. And once you've done that, we can clean it, because there's all this special stuff on it to stop it going rusty. So, now let's see if this will slot in the way it slots out. It might not, because it depends on the thickness of the disc. And no, this one will not. Not to worry, just need to loosen. I'd say we'll get away with just loosening one of the bolts. Alright, so it's an 18mm socket. I can't get the air gun in, but that's not the end of the world. Now it's loose, we can get smaller air gun in. Just loosen the top one. Might have to take it off. We might get away with just loosening it. We'll soon know. And there we go. Now, make sure you line up everything first. And like I said, these don't have to be tight. Now, clean the rest of this. Lovely. Put back the carrier. The only reason I managed to get it off was just because the disc was that worn and thin. That was the only reason, but not to worry. Now, tighten them by hand. Now, done. Now on the far side there's a little brake sensor wire, but there's not one on this side. It doesn't really matter. There's one on the other side. So I just like to paint the tips one first. The reason I don't like to paint inside here yet is because as I put it on, I don't want to spread grease anywhere and get it in the wrong part. Once it's on, then you can put copper grease on it like that. Now with this one, I need to butter it up everywhere because this one's going inside the caliper. So just have to be a lot more careful with this one so you don't get grease everywhere. So put it inside the caliper with the 3 little clips. Now, the caliper back on, make sure the wire, oh you can't see, make sure the hose or the brake wire isn't caught or twisted in a funny way. And there we go, it's in. Now I've cleaned these as you can see, so we're going to use grease on these. Anything designed to take heat but not copper grease. So I've got molly grease closest to me, so I'm going to use that, which is basically grease for the CV joint. One, and this is the second one. This will allow the caliper to slide nicely. Now I need to put the 2 little rubber caps back on. Now, the anti-rattle clip. These can be a pain to get back on, or they can go quite easy. It really does depend. We're lucky with that one. And that is it. Bang the wheel back on, and that's it. But like I said, it is vitally important if you do this, not change your pads and discs, but if you change your CV joint and do anything with your suspension to get it tracked. Even if it looks like it's tracked, even if it feels like it's tracked, and you drive down the road and you think it's straight, believe me, you want to track it because you will damage your tyres very, very quickly. So, and like I said, there's also adjustment here for camber. So you want to get your camber right because otherwise you'll eat your tyres in a matter of months. Well, a matter of weeks really. So yeah, that's it really. Pads and discs, the other thing you want to make sure is just make sure it spins round it's not getting stuck or anything like that, which it's not. You're not grinding on anything because there's a little plate at the back. Make sure it's not hitting. Everything is fine. Pump your brake pedal, because you've now done another side, so it's important to pump your brake pedal, because if you don't pump your brake pedal and you do your brakes, you drive down the road, you're going to have no brakes at all. Your brake pedal is going to go straight to the floor. So it's vitally important you pump your brake pedal. Do it after every side. And if you do one side, you have to do the other. It is so, so important. Don't try and scrimp and think, oh, it's only one side I need, because it's not going to work out. From the looks of the two discs we've got on this car, someone only replaced the disc on the far side and just changed the pads, because the discs and the pads on the far side are a million times better than the disc on this side. And the reason why I think they've done that is because the caliper is seized and they thought the pads and discs just wore quicker on that side, but the caliper is seized and that's what's made them wear a lot quicker. So you do not want to just do one side, do both sides. And like I always say, please like, share and subscribe. Check out our new forum, sign up if you haven't already. And don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one.